he kept the pipe open.
All right, thanks.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, we'll start this meeting off with a flag salute. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bryce, what's the name of the
This is Steve.
Okay.
I can't remember his last name. He is the project manager for Coughlin.
Okay, so if he calls in, I'll try to do a sound check with him.
Yes, yeah. He was definitely going to be here. Ted was going to try to, but he was could have been busy doing other stuff and now didn't make it. So.
A white Ford pickup pulled out up there, but nothing on this, no decals or nothing. So,
Steve Collins?
Yeah.
I didn't.
I just put it in my phone when I first got it. It said Steve. Anytime you get a cell phone, you always put it down as fast as you can.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, very true. Okay, well, what our agenda is here today is Road and Bridge with Bryce, and then if we pick them up, there'll be a representative from the Coughlin Company to discuss how we come about with a change order here for approximately $554,000, and it says extra cement costs are still being ironed out. So, Bryce, give us a rundown on here.
Oh, I see Steve. Can we do a check with him?
Okay.
Yeah.
Steve, can you hear us?
I hear you. Yes, ma'am. I finally got through.
Gotcha.
Okay, very good.
All right. To start this process off is when we started talking about doing the full depth reclamation with cement or whatever additive it is. I guess it was my first thought was, well, when we do this process, the way the road is out there, looks like we should be looking at 6% cement. So after we put this out,
Sorry.
all she had to do was say something. So but after I put this out and people saw that, I did some more discussing with some engineer peers of mine, as well as Terracon, which basically has been doing a lot of this stuff for quite a few years. They all recommended, said, you know, I think in order to save costs, you can get down to the 4%. So that's why we issued the addendum to go with the 4%. So when it was bid, and I did check that everybody that bid on the project did acknowledge the addendum, so that everybody was bidding on the 4% instead of the 6%. Unfortunately, when we got down to actually doing the mix designs, I guess you'd say hindsight being like it was, the ground underneath there was worse than what we thought. And based on the mix designs, which I have copies here also, it basically pushed us up to say, KDOT tries to go for like a 300 PSI strength in this grade. And based on our results at the 4%, we were down in the low to mid 200s. By going up to the 6%, we did get up fairly close to 300 with not much increase going above that in the amount of cement. So unfortunately, that's where that extra cement comes into play, and I think I gave you the breakdown of where their extra costs come from. And unfortunately, when it comes to the process, that's one of the biggest costs is the actual cement itself as compared to the manipulation. And so one of the, obviously I thought they gave a pretty good breakdown of the extra cost, and unfortunately at those prices, that's what it come out. Now again, hindsight being what it is, the only thing that we could have done differently was prior to going to construction out there was to go out and do some coring and stuff like that. The problem we face is that, the Nighthawk stretch is 13 miles, the West 60th down to Peabody is 2 miles, and the project up on Tampa is 5 miles, is that you're just basically doing a one-spot check out all those places to determine what you want to do. And even now, whether we go for 4 or 6%, we're still going to have those variable conditions down there based on how much moisture's there, what the top cover's like, things to that effect. So based on the mix design submitted by Terracon, they wanted to go, they recommended 6% to the contract. Now obviously that's a big cost, I understand that, and you know, looking at it now, it's like, okay, if we would have kept it at 6%, we'd added another, you know, $400,000 or whatever it is approximately to that. Then it always brings up the issue that if we did go out and get the cost share, would we have got it? I mean, that's the ultimate thing too. Or if we wouldn't have got the cost share, then we would have had to do the project all by our, you know, 100% county owned. So that's always a question there you'd never be able to answer too. So, like I said, I don't, you know, I wish I knew the answer to it. Now I can tell you that if the commission wishes not to spend, you know, to place the 6% there and leave it at 4% like it was bid, that I still think we're going to be better off than what we were before. And the fact is that we will have more of a homogeneous material to work with. We can still put the double chip seal back on top, and we'll be better off then than what we are now. Now the other thing to look at too is we could go back and say as part of another road project, we go back and put an overlay on top of it in the near future also. So those are some options there. These specs were basically piggybacked off of the specs that were done for 330th from K15 over to the county line on the Roxbury Road, where they actually called for 5% and was it 5% and a 5-inch overlay? I guess that's right here. Yeah, they had a they were going to use cement at 3%, or excuse me, cement at 6% with a 3-inch base, or a 4-inch base would have to have 5 inches of 5% of cement. So again, looking at the cost, that's one of the things that we thought we could reduce was, you know, not putting the overlay on there, putting a double chip seal on there. So just like anything else, the more structure you put on top of it, then the less you should have to do with the base. So.
Okay. I do remember discussion of it, of the 4 and 6%. I do remember some discussion. But I guess it was bid there, and then there's been no discussion since then. So when we see that there's a $554,000 increase here, why that, I mean, there has been no discussion of it.
Well, and I did go back. I remember, I guess I personally remember talking about it. I went back and looked at commission notes. There were several times it says we talked about projects, but nothing in specific. And on April 12th, I did see where we talked about, I said that the prices were probably going to be higher than bid because of these additions. Didn't talk any more specifics about it. Now, I totally understand it's a huge expense, not including the extra work at Tampa, as well as the milling that we were going to do on Nighthawk. So again, you know, obviously as the commission, you can make that choice, whatever you want to do, and we'll make it work.
There's no extra. What is there on milling? There's
the milling. When they were out there doing their testing, they did coring between 190th and US 56 around Canada, and that stretch there has a thicker asphalt on top than what the rest of the road does. So what their proposal was is we would go in and mill off the thicker asphalt on top, therefore making a more homogeneous material all the way through the project. So that because if theoretically if we left that amount of asphalt in there and put that amount of cement in there, it would probably have a different strength to whatever else than what the rest of the project would.
that was part of the bid, yes?
That was not part of the bid because at the time we didn't know what the thicknesses of the asphalt were.
Okay.
Now again, we don't have to do that if you don't want to. We were just trying to make things as uniform as possible.
I guess I've sat here for a few years and I've never seen a bid start with a cost increase unless there's, you know, that's why it just totally shocked me and some other commissioners too. So I'm gonna let them talk, and that's about all I got to say right now.
Okay.
So go ahead, anybody else?
Well, when we put together the specs for bids, I mean, was it just what you had put together, or did we have any other information?
That's what I was saying, was in order to get information, the information basically would have been going out and taking core samples throughout the road. Those samples run about $2,000 a piece, and they take about 3 weeks to get done. So again, even if we went out and say got a sample every mile, we're still talking a one spot in that mile, you know. So it's still to say it's a crapshoot.
Why didn't the contractors that were bidding then say, we can't bid this until we know what we
Well,
got? I don't buy this whole deal.
Yeah,
It's-
and that's the way that the specs are set up, is that if the contractor submits a mix design for that amount of percent. So when I put a percentage out there, that's what we were hoping for.
It was core sampled. I don't know, once a mile, is that what it was? All
No,
core
it wasn't near that much on this one, but I'm just saying is, it comes up the issue that, okay, we're gonna say that we're gonna do a core, however many cores it may
Right.
be. This is what we're gonna do the entire project unless we find something that changes in that time. So that, again, if you did it every mile, it basically comes down to more testing is, you can almost say that, it could be even more confusing. Oh, we need this mile, we need this much cement, this mile, we need this much cement.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about core sample. I don't remember how many often it was. They give us a list of how
They,
often.
it's all in here on where they took cores, and,
Okay.
you know, we actually went back and redid some cores too, or redid some stuff. And it's just like the one up on 330th, unfortunately, it's even worse shape yet, to where even with 6% cement, we're not getting up there. That's why we're gonna have to add aggregate on top of there. But, I mean, ultimately, if you look at it, it was my choice to go with the 4% instead of the 6%. So that, again, as a commission, if you wanna stick with the 4%, we can make it work. And like I said, we're still gonna have a better road because we're gonna have it homogeneous, we're going to have a cross slope, and then we're gonna have a double chip seal on top of it. So any way you look at it, we're still better shape that way.
Well, the noose is out there hanging, waiting for us if we don't have a better road.
I understand that.
Okay?
And
That's
I
just the way it
also,
is.
and I also understand the noose is out there too, saying, hey, why are we spending the extra money for you?
Well,
You know?
either way.
Yeah. But like I said, I still think that even if you do wanna go for 4% and stick with that, we're gonna be better off than what we were before. So,
It's pretty hard to sell to constituents. When you bid a project out, it comes in, and you get a change order for over $500,000 before it ever starts.
yeah.
No one understands that, and as well as myself.
Yeah, well, and I can tell you too, it's when you start talking $1 million contracts, you know, these hundreds of thousands of dollars can pop up. I know there's several times when I was working with KDOT that we had jobs coming up, and we were supposed to, well, in fact, this 256 bridge out here, we were supposed to patch and then overlay. Well, come to find out, we were gonna patch over 70% of the deck. And I said, you know, that doesn't make any sense to do a patch and overlay given 10 years. Why don't we replace the whole superstructure on top of the deck? And so we did that. It was a little extra money, but you
Yeah.
look at the life cycle cost too.
I think
so.
we're here today not to talk about state, we're here to
Right.
talk about this.
Right.
You know, and another issue is, what if we'd have bonded this?
Hey, you went out and got bonds for it, yeah.
We'd have been looking at a terrific amount of expense to redo the whole thing on top of that.
Yeah.
And did we offer, what did we put in for this one, 35% or 30?
Yes.
35%?
35, yeah.
35%. So if we would have figured this in to start with, our cost would have been a little higher
Yeah.
to start with, but the state either would have or wouldn't have, who knows?
Correct.
We
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
what they'd have done.
Yeah.
But I know that's probably one of the highest ones we've put our percentage in
Yeah.
that I've seen.
Yeah.
And so I guess, I don't know, it's a shock. And the basic thing that we want to know is we want to be on the same level as you are on knowledge, because we got to answer to these people,
Yep.
just like you too. And so that's the reason why the questions, Bryce,
Sure.
was for this. And Because we didn't understand it probably, why it was coming back to us like this.
Yeah.
And so I think if anybody, other commissioner has any questions, well, just pop right up. Yeah.
Well, I wasn't here when this all
Yeah.
transpired. It's interesting to hear the history of it and understand a little more from that. Because it is a big change, but at the same time, all of those roads involved have serious base problems. I mean, I think that's one thing we can all agree.
Yep.
That all of those roads have serious base problems. The other thing I think we can all agree is they all carry a substantial amount of traffic, a substantial amount of heavy traffic. So, from my perspective, and as you said, that noose hanging out there, I want it done right. And I'm just gonna say, from my opinion, that you can't make that improvement going from the 4% to 6% any cheaper than you can right now. I mean, you can't come back later and fix it. You wait 5 years and you start having problems, and you go, man,
I
we
wish.
should have gone 6%.
I wish, yeah, I wish, yeah.
And regardless, it's gonna make a better base.
Yeah.
You're gonna have better longevity of the road. So, taking the factors into consideration, yes, it's a significant increase in the change order, but I can sell it in that it's gonna provide longer
Lifetime.
to that road and a better road. And I think all of those people, wherever those roads are located, use those roads, are going to appreciate that. So I'm in favor of going forward with the 6%.
You know, I get the 4 to 6%. I mean, it's extra material. You're asking for more, so. But the part I don't is the second spreader truck and the mobilization for the second spreader truck. The mobilization for the second spreader truck is just gonna justify to me more that we need to use locals.
Well, and that was when I said that we were still talking about that, because that kind of caught me off guard too. Their philosophy is we're using and not having as much material. If they just use the one truck, that one truck going to the 6% would slow their production. If they have the second truck, then they would be able to keep the production up.
It allows them to finish on a timely manner and make more money, so.
What we don't want too is we want to get out there and say, for instance, that just speaking in the construction needs, I don't want to be waiting for material out there either at the same time. Now, again, is that something legitimate? I could say yes. The price, I don't really know. Again, that we just got this last week or whatever it was. So that's one of the things that I think. And I don't know, Steve, if you have any comment to that effect or have any input on that?
I was trying to get the mute off.
Gotcha.
Join the
You know,
crowd,
just
Steve.
when we did the job, we had one spreader in it, one spreader truck. And then Ted told me when, you know, because of the change from the 4% to 6% cement, that he was gonna need another spreader truck to be able, like you said, to meet the productions that we bid with, to be able to complete the job in the same amount of time that we had bid initially. And so he called and talked with our owner, Darren Coughlin, actually get a second spreader truck, and he had to get it shipped from Utah, so that's obviously, that's a cost, and he couldn't find one, he said, any closer, so that's why that cost is there.
We don't have any spreader trucks local. We could
Well,
sub out.
the spreader trucks, I think, don't you have a vane system on the back of your trucks to put this down, Steve? They have a special attachment on the back of them?
Yeah, well, depending on the, I guess, the speed that that spreader truck goes, that will depend on how fast they can place, however many tons that we need to get placed per hour, or whatever Ted's spreading, whatever we're spreading out there on site. I was hoping he would be on the call, or he could tell you a little more specific as far as what he does there on the job, but.
Yeah.
We do have some callers on, but I don't know who they are.
So I hit items 2 and 3, but 4, additional testing.
Yeah, that was my.
That was where we went back and said, you know, we didn't have good results with what we had. Let's go back and take 2 more samples and try. The second ones, we actually put some crushed concrete in there to determine strength, especially for 330. So that's where those 2 extra tests come from. And again, I mean, I think that those, in a sense, are probably negotiable somewhere to some sense. And like I said, that's why we hadn't been able to work through that. So.
Yeah, I'm fine. If you can, you know, if there's a spreader truck or somebody has a rental rate that we can compare to, if you think the price is high, I'm sure open to that.
The ones that have spreader trucks, the coal house probably, if they spread the line.
And then the cement, it's probably just gotta be special cement. It can't be anything, we can't use any substitution.
Well, the substitutes are higher priced than what the cement is. Cement is one of the items right now that hasn't gone up in price. We used to put a lot of fly ash in things. Well, with all the changes in the coal industry and stuff like that, they're hardly producing any fly ash anymore. It's availability. The cement here most of it comes out of Chanute, Humboldt, things to that effect. They truck it in on the big pigs and just leave it set here, and then they pump off the pigs. That's, again, the other option is a lime, and you obviously have to deal with, most of the time you put down a lime, you have to put down the lime slurry. It gets to be a costlier process also. So.
As far as the base goes, you can't add more crushed concrete to it or something to.
Well, again, we could. We didn't do the crushed concrete on that part down there, but inherently we're going to, the material may be free, but we're going to spend a lot of money in trucking it all the way from up there down to there too. So we wouldn't have as much of that cost in there, but I don't know what that total cost would be either. So, but that's obviously an option because that's what we're going to do up there on 330th also.
I just think any nickel and dime that we can knock out of it, as long as it doesn't inadvertently increase it by not thinking about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, honestly, I've thought about, you know, all sorts of different things that we could do. I just don't know, you know, the crushed concrete 4%, but trying to turn around and, I mean, we're going to have to contract all the trucks in order to get enough material down there instead of our own trucks. So, you know, we'd have to look about that. So,
Could potentially the crushed concrete make up for the 2%, or is it not?
Strength-wise or cost-wise?
Strength. I don't want to do anything.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it will definitely help, but to what extent, I don't know, as far as that goes for that project. And the problem is too, is we're to the point now that they want to start next week. So I don't know whether we could make changes on the fly to take care of that. I mean, the other thing that we could do is that we could go down there and I mean, it does call for a test section. Most people don't do the test section because they do this for a living. It's pretty much cut and dried for, you know, new contract or whatever else. You definitely want that just to make sure they have all their stuff, you know, lined or whatever else is. But we could do, because we were actually gonna do the same thing up on 330th. We were gonna do some testing to see what we could find out would be the best thing to do.
If you did the testing and a result comes back, then are you going to come back and say, well, we need more cement in this area? Is that what?
Well, that's why they said we were confident at the 6% that we could get those strings. Now, again, the other thing you look at is that all this stuff is based on, you know, a couple tests, whatever else. If we get into an area that's been underwater for a whole bunch of time, has more water in the subgrade, it's going to affect it a little differently. Other places on top of the hill won't. I mean, that's the whole deal with the process. You don't really know. It's no different than like planting a field where you have different areas and fertilizer or whatever else. So,
Steve, are you still online?
Yes, I'm still here. Ted actually just texted me too. If you still have a question for him, he said he's on the line now.
Okay. The only thing that I have a question of, would you guys bid it if it was set at 6%? That would have mean you would have had to have a second truck. Would you bid for this job at that if it would have been 6% then?
Yes, we would put another spreader truck in at 6%. If we'd increased the cement, from 4 to 6, yes,
Okay.
sir,
And
we would have.
and your home base is Utah, correct?
I'm out of Utah because that's where I bid from, but we have an office there in Kansas also, and that's where Ted is at.
Yeah, that's the reason why when we opened the bids up, I thought that you should call a company from Utah. So I think the first thing I went to Bryce after the meeting and said, "Where's this company from?" And then he described where you was at and stuff like that too. So I was just looking at your cost to transport the truck down here. That's why I was asking those questions. So,
Yes, sir.
Any further questions?
Just curious, Ted, they were asking why we had to get it from, coming from Utah if you couldn't find one there. I thought he was on the line, maybe not.
He said you might not have.
Can you guys, Bryce, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, well, there was our other sister company up in Minnesota was closer, but they was not available for a truck any closer.
Okay.
So that was kind of our only choice, to bring it from up there.
Okay.
And it's Dimitri, is Terracon on this call?
They are not, but Dimitri said he would be available if we wanted to talk to him.
Well, I think a lot of this should be turning up to him, that he should be answering a lot of these questions from the 4 to 6. He did the design, and basically, we cored the road for depth, and we took our samples, we went back and took extra samples on 330th, and, especially if you go with a less percentage, 4%, you're going to have good areas, you're going to have bad areas. And we don't want that. We want this job to be solid all the way through. Eventually, they're saying 6%. That's going to take care of the thick areas and the thin areas. And basically, if it's like Bryce said, if there's areas that need more cement, you're not going to know that at 4%. But if we got the rate out there at 6%, it's going to take care of that area. So I think you guys should have a call. We should have a call with Dimitri. He's my guy that's been doing all my designs for 7 years, and that's their cup of tea. That's what they do for a living. We build them, but we go off of the spec. And I don't want to build something that's going to make us look bad or you guys look bad or be upset. So my feeling is we can talk all day about this. But I think Dimitri should be on this call and answer some of these questions that's not what we do. The spreader truck's one thing. So basically, going from 4% to 6% with that spreader truck, you're taking 4%. We bid it at. So we had the dates in, and a load would go, a 25-ton load would go about 1,150 feet. Now we up to 2 more percent. So basically, a load's going to go 620 feet. Yeah. So my production behind with what I'm doing, I'm going to be sitting there waiting for them. For me to spread a load takes 10 minutes, and that's a computerized spreader truck. It's a main spreader. So I set that at what percentage I need, and you drive the speed that it tells you, and that's what brings you out to your mark. If you put a flag out there 600 feet, and that truck will be empty at that rate. It might take 1 load or 2 to get it just set just right for the number in there, but after that it's right on.
Okay.
And so basically 600 feet to 1,150 feet, there's a lot of waiting time without having another spreader truck. So I can unload. It takes me 10 minutes to unload one, but 45 minutes to blow a load back in. So it's just killing our production if we don't have these spreader trucks. But I'll be quiet with you guys talk now.
Okay. All right.
I did text Dimitri. He is the lab manager for Terracon that did these tests. So hopefully he can call in here.
Is there any questions from the commission at this point? discussed it a little bit, and I do see some importance on a truck that's set for it, ready to go with it, and lay it down at the correct rate. I mean, we'd be guessing if we, especially if we did I run a manure spreader at one time. You guess at that.
We're not hiring. So
Surprisingly, I've done that too.
Yeah, but it's to try to get the right texture flowing out of there is what we need. So.
It's a much more specialized.
Oh,
piece of
yes,
equipment.
yeah,
It
but
is.
try to get it evenly, I understand that, so I understand the concept of what they're trying to do, they want it down to their 6%, what they're getting, so,
Chairman, would you like me to speak to the finance part of this?
yes.
Okay,
Yeah, go
so,
ahead.
the estimate, that KDOT approved, their maximum was, $2,775,000, and the initial bid was under that. And so the cost share is based on that maximum, they would go up to that amount for the total project, and their maximum percent is based on that. So even if you have a $552,000 change order, the county's portion of that is gonna be closer to $400,000, because the state would take up part of it up to their maximum. So
That's good.
just wanted to let you know that, and this is being paid for out of the capital project fund, and so there's sufficient money within that fund to cover that increase if that's the way you go.
With that being said, no more about manure. How's the commission feel? I'm here, I know what I feel like, but.
Well, I agree with Dave. If we're gonna do it, we need to do it right. My big issue is, I think we as commissioners would like to do several more projects. Is this gonna be the norm?
Honestly,
We don't want it to be the norm.
I understand. In the future, I would like to do this too, because I think it still comes in $130,000 a mile. And I think you can't get, even though we're doing double chip seal, we're working on the base, that's the issue. I would like to do a bunch more of this too. We can just do more design and information up front. That I totally agree, because I'm the same way. I have to try to justify this, and the only thing I can base on the justification, if I had my own lab, we could go out and do all the testing we want to, but that's not cost prohibitive either. So yes, we're definitely going to do more work and obviously too, that's what, like you guys said, we want to make sure we do this right, so when we go down the road, we have that also.
I just don't want us to have open-ended contracts like the federal government.
Yeah, just
Because
create more money.
The contractors love federal contracts.
Yeah.
Brian?
Yeah.
Can I speak? Hey, Brian? This is Ted again. Another thing, as we start, Terracon will be doing a lot of testing. They could be taking some unconfined strength and pound them out within 7 days, They can take some, I did some federal highway projects in Oklahoma the same way, and maybe you don't get your results within the next, 5 or 6 days, but they can pretty well tell, and like you were saying with the test strip, yeah, I agree with that, and, but as we're moving through there, they may look at that and say, hey, that in a lab, you're bringing it in, the material in, but as you get out there, you're open road, it could change. They could say, hey, we need to cut this cement back. You're putting, but there you go again. If you cut back, it's a lot of testing. I didn't put a lot of testing into maybe to do what I'm saying here, but we've got quite a bit in there for testing, and that's what I plan to do. And if it does change the percentage, maybe we will probably cut it back. I'm going to leave that up to Terracon, and that's another call for them. That's how me and Dimitri had talked about this thing. Mix design is a mix design. You can do 100 mix designs on this thing, but it could end up with 5% average throughout the project. So.
And we have Dimitri is on the call now.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any questions of Dimitri?
I think Terracon is invaluable. I think we gotta have him.
Well, like I said, I contacted him during Newfield EDH. He said that they were just priceless on that job up there, doing the investigation, the design, the testing, and So,
I see them all the time on our construction jobs,
Yeah.
erecting. So,
Yeah.
I mean, they just absolve any liability and ensure
Yeah.
that the building's gonna stand, so.
Yeah, I agree.
They're, you can't cut them,
okay,
in my opinion.
yeah.
But the other thing is, get French drains ready to go in case you wind up finding problematic areas.
We
You can dump them in.
could throw that together pretty quickly. I mean, it's just a matter of digging out the hole, putting the rock in, we can take care of that, so.
What if Terracon comes in and said we got a 3-mile section that needs 7%?
Well, honestly, based on the test that they did, the difference between, they went to 6 instead of did 6.5, the increase in strength was negligible. So.
Right.
Yeah, so that's, I think, was that Dimitri? Or Ted?
So that's Ted. I mean, that's,
Okay.
it basically, they've got the cement to the max. You need some more. That road has got less milling. It's got less asphalt milling, which is bigger particles. So basically, Nighthawk Road has got more asphalt. So that's why we're getting more strength because we got more asphalt milling or coal mix on that road. 330th, it doesn't have but a couple 3 inches. And that's why it don't matter how much more cement you add, you're still not going to get any more strength until you add some kind of rock or another particle in there to give that cement bond to for strength. So the cement's not good. It's just no good if they put 10% cement in there. You're still probably never going to meet the 350 psi or 330 psi. So I mean, this is another thing. Dimitri can answer these just as well as I can.
Yeah. Bryce, would you like to speak with Dimitri since he's?
And that's an extra cost also with adding this rock out front.
Yeah.
It's an extra cost, but and it's another thing that we have to deal with, waiting on trucks, or if they can get enough, if the county can haul us enough material out front, keep me going at 1.5 miles or so a day in one lane. That if we're waiting or not. I mean, we didn't really add nothing for this. It's adding extra material that we got to grind and mix, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Dimitri, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Bryce.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon. We were talking about basically going from the 4% to the 6% and the extra tests. The commission obviously was concerned about the 4 to 6%, which we talked about, getting the strength up near that 300. We did some extra testing going a little higher than that and basically found the strengths didn't increase that much. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, we see something. First of all, I would differentiate the Nighthawk from 330th.
Yes.
We probably have a somewhat different picture on those roads because Nighthawk, we kind of have a better results. To my understanding, it's a more or less uniform road. There's thickness of the asphalt that I've seen from Coughlin. It's more or less uniform. On 330th, I was able to visit that road, and as you go east from Tampa, the asphalt quality start decreasing, significantly. There is substantial areas where you almost don't have any asphalt, and that's kind of where me personally has kind of biggest concern because you adding this variability to the all this process, and your strength could vary, from section to section.
Yeah, I don't disagree with them at all.
Yeah, and as far as the trucks going out front, I had lined up some contract trucks, and we're going to use the crushed concrete out of our stash at 340th, so we'll be 6-7 miles down the road. I think we could find easily 2 to 3 trucks keep way out ahead of 10. So we had actually talked about stockpiling material out there also, and I said I didn't really want to do that because that creates an inherent liability for a stockpile out there also on the paved roads. So, but obviously Dimitri, Ted was talking about, we were gonna stick with the 6% and I guess what we talked about is we didn't see any appreciable, increase going to 6.5 or above that, so we wouldn't have to go above the 6%, right?
Yeah, I don't see much. The test we done didn't show much increase of the once we had the 7% of the material. So I think you don't have probably that cost benefit added value once you keep increasing cement, because the material that we're experiencing, it's pretty fat clay and it's high plasticity material, and it is require a lot of Portland cement to increase the strength, but there is also a limit how much you can increase the strength, you know. And speaking about 4% is, I don't know if I recall right, there is a portion of 330th Road that had been done several years ago. And if I recall, I don't think we did the 4% over there. I think the percentage was close to 5. You know, I know the soil condition could be different over there in the west of Tampa, but I don't think we went 4% over there.
Okay.
Yeah, you were saying earlier,
Yeah.
the Roxbury Road.
Well, no, I think this was probably, well, it could have been that one, or there was a Tampa West also. I don't know what they did on that, but
That was also liquid.
that was liquid, okay, yeah. So, and,
Injected liquid.
yeah, and just based on the equipment, that's why the powdered dry cement comes in less expensive than the hydrated or the slurry because of the extra material, so. But anyway, so do you have any other questions?
Any final questions? If no final questions from no commissioner or Bryce or Tina, I would like to thank the gentleman for getting on with us this afternoon and answering our questions so we can make a decision to either move ahead or do what we do with bid it or at 6%. And I think that's right now is what I'm going to proceed to is, do I hear a motion to go with the 6%?
I guess I would make the motion to proceed with the change order.
Okay, let's go to 6% then.
Yes, that includes the 6%, the spreader, second spreader, organization.
Okay, I would second that. I have a motion by Dave Mueller, second by me, and any discussion, final discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign. 4-0. Move ahead. And again, thank you guys for getting on board with us here this afternoon.
So the actual change order form, we'll need to amend it because it doesn't have the amount in there and the
Right.
total new
Right,
price.
right.
Okay,
Yep.
so we could potentially have that for the next meeting?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I just gave you the form that we had to go get an update, so.
Okay.
And their start date is?
Monday. Yep. So that was the plan.
Close.
Huh? Well, you know, I mean, these guys are getting else, we can make what I want to work, but it's, you know, they've been over there working on the equipment for the last couple of days, and
Okay.
there it goes.
Good.
But
And they're starting up north?
no, he kind of threw me for a loop, and now they're going to start at 140th and Nighthawk, go south to Peabody, and then they were going to go. They're going to do one lane south, then head 60th west, one lane, turn around and come back, match up, come back up this way till they get to 140th, and then they were going to start the chip seal from there south as Coughlin went north. So that way they'll be able to get in and get that chip seal started on the south end as well. So I did. Sorry.
That means we gotta figure out what we're doing with Peabody pretty fast.
Pretty quick, yeah.
Well, I was just going to say I did talk to Coughlin. The issue that I can see, there's two issues down there. One, we're going to have to raise up over the top of that big culvert about halfway through because we've only got maybe 8 inches. Second of all, it's pretty narrow, 18 to 20 feet. So I was a little worried about whether his big machine would do that, but he said he could actually do it with a small machine also. So, but anyway, just FYI.
It is possible then.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And he said he would have no problem. Oh, Ted's still there?
Bryce, both machines will be, the 8-foot machine and the 12-foot machine will both be working on the same project, so.
Okay.
Basically, the 8-foot will be following in behind that 12-foot.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
But,
Maybe I can talk to some of the council members this weekend, see ahead of time, see.
Well, and-
Monday night.
and based on their adding the premix, the stabilization, the micro cracking, and the sealing, comes up 960 a square yard. That project was 2,620 right at a half mile. And if you wanted to go 20 feet wide, that would be your square yardage basis.
Total cost, and what do you figure?
Well, if you take 2620 times 20 divided by 9, and then take that times 9.6, total cost to be right at $56,000. So,
Okay,
but,
56.
yeah.
Okay. Maybe, we'll see.
Take half of that or whatever.
Okay.
Or maybe they'd be willing to pay more. Anyway.
Okay.
So, anyway. All right.
Hey, Brian?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Ted. Are you talking on that's that little stretch we talked about yesterday, that half a mile?
Yes.
Peabody?
Yes, going down the west
Yeah,
side of
okay.
Peabody.
Right, that would be an add-on. Okay, and then also, what about the one in Tampa? You were talking about going south, right there in Tampa?
Yes, that would come up to be, I believe it was 1,660 linear feet, 23
Right.
feet wide. It ended
Yeah.
up being 4,242 square yards more.
Yeah.
And that was
That's what I
gonna-
come up with.
Yep, and that was going to be on this change order as well.
That was 46,000 or something.
Okay.
40,000.
40,000.
So, okay.
You say that's included in the 500?
Yes.
64?
As well as the milling on 190th, 200 on 90th. So, okay. Done with the change order then?
Any final questions? Nope.
Okay.
I don't have one more.
Yeah, I'll get the revised one back to you.
All right.
Okay, thanks Ted, Dimitri,
Okay,
Steve.
thanks, guys.
Yes.
Hey, Monday. Okay, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
And the next item on here is for the budget, so we can get a figure down for the road and bridge and throw that one figure that somebody put on there out the door.
Well, it was 24, then John had the extra 2 million on there, so, you know, but.
Not your fault, Jim.
I don't know where he's getting that. That's fake news.
Fake
Thanks,
news.
Lucas.
No. And I guess, you know, I do appreciate trying to come up with a plan for this. I guess as a commission, what are you looking at? How much money are you looking to spend? I mean, are we talking bond? I mean, give me an idea of what you're looking at.
I mean, for future projects,
Yes.
all of them.
All of them, yep.
I think what Scott's looking for is for you to come up with a plan of what roads you're gonna do next year and how much they're gonna cost.
Okay,
And then they know what to put in the budget.
okay.
And it has to be within reason.
Yeah, because what we've got is back since 2007, the average cost per mile was $45,000.
Okay,
So that's what we got to work off.
okay.
And it's not gonna, it doesn't work.
No. Well, and I did go back and just off the top of my head, and maybe you guys would know, I was trying to figure out the projects that have had some work on in the last 10 years, and I come up with 290th, 90th over to Chisholm, and then 90th from K15 to Meridian, 330th over to Rock, or to the county line. Indigo, I guess they did a surface recycle or whatever else on there. And then West Tampa from Tampa West, as well as Timber from 40th to 10th. Can you think of anything
Tampa to
else?
where?
For what?
Tampa to where?
Tampa West to K15, and then there was that was the KDOT loan or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Now, if we're figuring, I don't know, I'm just trying to be realistic here, but if we're figuring that the average road lasts, what, 8 years?
Based on what you have, and yeah, I mean, that would probably be a good.
So we're gonna have to have a revolving 8-year number.
Now.
So if it was a revolving 10-year number, it'd be $2.6 million.
Yes.
Yeah, but,
But-
you know, is it gonna be revolving overlay, revolving chip seal,
All the
you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and ultimately, that's what we get at, is when we get these roads back into a good place, that chip sealing and stuff like that does more benefit keeping that project that way. Once we get to the point where we are now, where we have lost that capacity to gain anything with the chip seal, that's what hurts us. But, you know, looking at those projects there, that's 42 miles in 10 years or thereabouts. You know, so
We're gonna have to do more than that.
we're gonna have to do more than that. Now, the other thing to consider is that turning those black roads back to rock.
There's gotta be some that we can turn back to rock.
Well, just off the top of my head, looking at traffic volumes, 150th from Indigo over to K15. It's a blacktop road going to two blacktop roads, but it doesn't connect. I mean, it used to be paved over McPherson County. Obviously, 120th does carry significant traffic back and forth to Gossel. You know, so that you look at Kansas south of Ag Service or whatever it is there. Not much traffic down there, but that's another 3 miles.
Is it that, you'd think that piece has got a lot of traffic on it, doesn't it?
Well, and I guess it comes down to your definition of a lot of traffic.
Well,
That's where the whole thing comes into, to say subjectively compared to objectively, where is that break? You know, again, most of our roads are right around that 200 vehicles per day, wherever that break is. You know, and unfortunately, we've talked about is another one going by your house, you know, that goes out to 3 rock roads. You look at Kansas between US 56 and 290th, really doesn't serve any major interest that you could think of. I mean, there is the wildlife, what's that, whatever cove that is up there, but
Fishing game.
or fishing game, whatever it is. But you know, if somebody was going from Hillsborough to Tampa, I would have thought you could take Highway 15 and 330 and be there faster and a better road. But again, the problem we face is those are blacktop roads. You turn it back to rock, and that's tough pill to swallow too. You're talking about a hangman's noose, and you know.
Well, if you have your hands tied, it's different.
Yep.
I mean, if you financially just can't do it, you just gotta make those cuts.
Yeah. You know, you talk about the limestone, you know, going from 290th up to Tampa. You know, again, is one thing about that is I think the Tampa elevator does a tremendous amount of harvesting with trucks going in and out of there. So how can you put that into the equation? The other thing to think about is that some of the roads that we had talked about involve the Father Capon event or whatever else happens down there. So say for instance we go in and overlay 290th, is that going to suffice for what we could possibly see down the road for traffic? Because we don't have much for shoulders, clearances, whatever else. Remington's the same way. So you kind of throw that in the mix too, that's always that big question out there. But I mean, like I said, based on the priorities, that I say the high dollar road or high traffic roads would be Indigo, you know, going south of Hillsborough. We've talked about that, you know, and whether we want to do 290th, because obviously that's, you know, showing some tough, but the Indigo basically is just the pavement. We don't have everything else. But again, with 290th, do we want to go back and add shoulders? We might have to extend structures. There's a couple bridges there that are issued. But obviously, we got to, you know, whether anybody thinks about it or not, we are going to have a increase in traffic on Remington, no matter what it says. We don't know how much, but so I mean, there's a thought there. So do we, as a county, do we go in and do something on that immediately? Basically, a shame to say that, do we put forth the full court press to tell the Catholic Diocese that we are serious about what this could mean for Marion County? But again, I don't want to bring that up.
I don't think they could answer you.
Well,
They'd say call Rome.
Yeah, well, and that's exactly right. They don't know either, you know. So
there's an extensive base job underneath Remington.
Right?
I mean, we put extra rock, we tore it out, we've done extra. Now, I don't know how long it's gonna last. I know there's getting holes in it and stuff like that now. So I don't know whether you could get by with coming in and patching and putting an overlay over that or not. I think you could probably, but.
We can. Whatever we do is going to be better than what it is. But again, how much do we, we talked, I guess they looked at this before about redoing this road or whatever else, and they basically said that with all the structures need to be widened and ditch work and stuff like that, it was kind of cost prohibitive, and you're better off building a new road. Now whether that's
Are you
what.
talking about Remington?
Yes. Because you got, if you were to widen that road out, a lot of those structures are gonna be, say the road's 23 feet, some of those structures could be 30 feet long. So you basically have no shoulder. And you look at these design and safety requirements, again, this is all stuff that might be out there, but.
Well, right now, I have a 1 and a 2 road. I have Indigo and I have Sunflower from Marion South to 50. There's a 1 and a 2, and Indigo from Hillsborough to 50. There's a 1 and a 2 road. There's volume of traffic.
Right.
And number 3 road is somewhere else. I mean, but I'm saying, what my point is those two, do you do something different when you redo them than what you do other places?
Indigo, we had talked about it, and one of the things I'd like to do yet is maybe get, whether it's Terracon or somebody else to come out there and do a couple cores underneath that pavement to find out why we're having the subgrade issues. Do we have water leaching in? What's going on? But I think we could patch that now and get an overlay on it that would make a substantial difference. At least push it off down the road long enough till we could figure out something else.
Sunflower you might be able to, if it's
Sunflower really is in pretty good shape considering. Now there are some things that we could do. Now again, the other thing would be interesting to find out what the core depth on that is. One of the things that may be advantageous there is to try to do the surface recycle or the what we call hot recycle, whatever else that you tried on Indigo where you didn't have the pavement strength.
I'm not too fond of what we did on Indigo.
Well, and again,
it didn't turn out to be too.
But again, that's one of the things you have. It's like anything else. It works well on the state highways because typically they have
a good base.
A good base, exactly. And it's like anything else. If you don't have a base, then it's tough to do that. But again, I mean, and honestly, Sunflowers is in comparison is in great shape compared to what most of them are. But yes, it does have I think that's the third highest traffic.
I don't know how Sunflower.
Yes. Because I think 190th is actually right behind you.
Between two sit downs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sunflower's 4.
Sunflower's 4th. Oh, okay, you got traffic ones, yeah. Yeah, I'm guessing you guys did have that. It did have the traffic on there. I did look, and KDOT actually has 2019 numbers now, but I don't think they're going to change much over what these were. So, but anyway, based on the Indigo, and again, Indigo, we submitted that cost of, well, I guess it's like 2.7 million. Is that what we were looking at?
2.65. When
we were looking at it, and that was just for the overlay. Honestly, I don't know what else we could do unless we went back and did something with the base again, and then you're starting all over. But yeah, I mean, that you look at the amount of traffic and whatever else, probably the #1 need. Now, whether you want to do something on Sunflower, we could do that. I think what Sunflower I had a profile.
Do right now, but I think Indigo's worse than Sunflower.
Yes.
By a whole shot.
Yes.
But
Yep.
I'm just saying, if you get to the 2 or 3 highest traffic roads, do you do something different? I guess that's my question.
Well,
Wherever
honestly, the thought process is you keep your good roads as good as you can, and then you work on the other ones. So, putting that out there, but like I said, Sunflower, we could, honestly, I think if we did a profile mill and overlay on it, man, I think you'd be looking at a great road. Again, without, doing more investigation. Obviously, we're taking care of Nighthawk, we're taking care of 330th. The only other issue, and again, it's a very tough decision would be 190th. You know, we're getting to the point there where we need to do some substantial work. I mean, we can continue to patch, but we're losing every year. But again, you face the issue is why do you work with 190th when you've got the highway right next to it? But I can tell you there's a tremendous amount of traffic that runs back and forth that doesn't want to run the new highway. So.
I was surprised when we shut down 190th from the people at Gossel. That was a real surprise. When are you going to, that's one way we want to go to Marion. We want to get on 190th and go in instead of the highway.
Yep.
But different age group that I was conversing with.
And you know, I mean, honestly, the traffic on Highway 56 is running faster.
Yeah.
Considerably more trucks.
Yep.
So from a safety standpoint, but you know, I mean, you're just looking at.
I look at it from a different perspective. We get on the highway, got more roadway to.
Yep.
When you're talking about overlay, it's just a general overlay, are you just talking about 2 inches?
That most of the roads would probably benefit the most from a 2-inch. The other thing the reason that I was talking like a profile mill on sunflower would be you go in there and you profile mill it at 2% cross slope, all of that cross. You true it up, you put the cross slope back in there, and when you put the overlay back on top of there, you're going to keep that all the way across. So keeping the cross slope is absolutely critical as far as keeping the road in good shape.
Bryce, there's a section down there just below B150, between 140th and 150th, right in there on the cross from Donnie Hance.
Okay.
In there. There's east side is down compared to any place else in that road is down quite a bit. When you do an overlay over that, can they change some of that at that time?
Yes.
They can.
What you do as a profile mill is you say, okay, I want you to mill 1 inch on center line and put your profile up there. So if you're lower than what your profile mill is, you don't mill anything. If you get down to a point that's higher, you'll mill all that off. So that when you come back with your overlay with 2 inches, then you'll see, and if it's bad enough, you can actually go in and what they do like a leveling course or a patch ahead of there. Then you come back and you go across it so you have a uniform cross slope.
Okay.
And that's just something that you look at when you're out there milling and you can determine that.
It's just that one section there, you know you're driving.
Well, and again, it's frustrating when you work on a road. Why is it doing it? Is the ground settling? You know, almost every bridge approach that you go across for a new bridge settles. Well, it's not the new bridge berm, it's actually ground down below that said, hey, we've got some extra weight out here, you know. And you know, it could take 5 to 10 years for that to settle out in the meantime. But that's very frustrating. And again, Indigo, why do we have the problems that we do? So, but I mean, based on, you know, the Indigo, even putting the overlay on 290th, that was, you know, just due to the length, it was what, 14 miles? Yeah, 14 and a half miles. I mean, that's over $3 million. So you put those two together and you're close to 7 million, 6.5 million, 7 million. And like I said, I think we really need to look at Kansas from 56 down to Ag Service to do something there, because with those trucks going in and out, both for the co-op as well as Ag Service, that really is really hurting.
Well, on your recap, you had 4 asterisks.
Yes.
Right? So
But-
those, in your opinion, those are the worst condition roads,
Well,
or higher priority?
I would say higher priority.
Okay, better bang for your buck?
Well-
I mean,
One of the things to look at is that the Kansas project, I think, would be a great one to try to get a cost share or something like that, to where we can show that we're actually helping 2 businesses and stuff to that effect in that area. But that's what I'm looking at, because right now it's rutting really bad, and that's not going to get any better.
they're both small.
Yeah.
That's gonna have to be really, really reinforced too.
Well, I was just, and that's what I was getting to
Just
say.
a matter
was-
of time that the hoop building been there, that road is gone.
Well, right, and there's 2, I say methods of thinking that you can stick with asphalt, just build a bigger base, a thicker asphalt pavement, or it's small enough, you know, 1.5 miles, whatever else, you go back to put concrete pavement in. You know, that's something that a local contractor could do.
Right, but it'd have to be thick. I mean, you're gonna be running implements and stuff.
But you gotta remember, concrete is stronger than asphalt. So
And
you
you get a
can,
40-year life out of it.
well,
On City Street. I
well,
guess.
right. Most time when you design for pavement, at most you go out about 30 years. Now, the exception would be Highway 56 going across here from Hillsborough. That's been there since, what, the late 80s? All things considered, still in great shape. You know, a few little base problems, whatever else is. But say, for instance, if you put an asphalt road out there and you design it to current standards, you're probably looking at 6 inches AB3 and maybe 8 or 10 inches of asphalt. Where if you put concrete out there, basically put the dowel basket in what this is, you could go out there with probably 8-inch thick concrete and 4 inches of base and have the same thing. But again, you're using local resources as compared to bringing in an asphalt contractor. Now, the other thing you're talking about doing all these projects at one time is if you schedule them to be done, say, all next year, you put them in one you tie them all together to individual contracts. Say, you give us a price for all these. If you choose not to do that, we can pick and choose the lowest or the best contractor for each one. But I can almost tell you that if you throw that many tons together, one person's gonna get it. Because they're gonna bring in a plant, they're gonna be right here. That's what hurts us so bad about our asphalt is we pay $10 a ton just to get it here. Whether it comes from Wichita or Emporia or wherever. And that's just huge. I mean, any way you look at it, 25 ton, it's $250 every time a truck comes down here to drop that. So again, that's what you look at, but you know, because obviously that'll help your unit cost, but again, that, you know, the 1/90th and Kansas, but you know,
When they started the 2000 project to do all those 40-some miles, that's when they brought a plant in. And I think it was up north, wasn't it? Somewhere up north where they put it. I can't remember. I can see the scheme out of it, but I can't remember where it was at. Because, I mean, it was cold weather.
yeah. And you know, the other thing is the more asphalt you put out there, the higher priority it's gonna be for everybody, because they're gonna say, hey, that's where all our work is, we need to get up there and get it done, and, you know, because they're gonna kind of plan everything else around when that has to be done. But, you know, as far as what you wanna do, that's, you know, I mean.
A while ago, Kent, you said something about 2.6.
Well, our bonding limit is less than 4.
Yeah. And
So you're looking at one project basically.
Okay.
I mean, if you're kind of comparing it to Nighthawk or
Right,
something
right.
like that. So it would take a charter resolution to open end that thing, which, I mean, from what we're looking at, my feeling is we need to go for charter resolution. Now, I guess we have to have the projects before we can do that, so.
Well, I was looking at the asterisk projects, those 4 projects would be 5.645 is what I come up with.
Now, and I did, one of the asterisks was the 140th
Right.
Down there, down Olney. We had talked about that if you're interested, is we could go back and just turn it back to rock at roughly $35,000 a mile. So $100,000 we could turn it back to rock, take care of it for a couple of years, and then if you wanted to, we could go back and do something, you know, again. And again.
I thought you paused, I thought you were
Oh.
done for a second. Do you have another packet, like what you gave the board, so I can have it for Scott?
Oh, I've got extra copies.
Oh, yeah, okay.
This one's got scribbles on it.
That's okay.
Okay.
I just wanna make
It's
sure
all
that,
over mine.
I'm keeping the good one, keeping the original. That's
Okay.
good.
thanks.
So,
Actually, extra asterisk on it. I better give you the original. Why don't you take the original, and then you can make a copy.
Okay,
I'll keep the scribble one and then.
Okay.
but anyway,
Copy the original
again,
back.
you know, that comes down to commission, but if we're gonna do something there, we probably need to look at full depth reclamation again, and,
Well, that's what we kind of need for budget.
Yeah,
right,
we're trying to come up with a number.
yeah. And now you see, I guess I'm asking for estimates, and charter resolution would allow you to bond every year then, or?
Allow you to bond more than the 4.2.
Oh, okay, gotcha, okay.
For one-time bond.
I got you,
And
okay.
if you're looking at projects of 5.64 million, you would have that by the end of next year, and you would probably have that in your capital improvement fund by the end of
Right.
next year.
What,
So we would need to do a bond.
Well,
Yeah,
not
no.
necessarily for those, but
Right.
if you wanted to do something, a
What
larger
is our-
project.
Oh, I see, we have other alternatives. I mean, we can do other projects. We can save
Right.
that for other projects.
Right.
Yes,
Or,
yes.
or not bond
Yes.
as much and use some of that money for that
Yes.
and then turn around bond later.
And that's, I guess, I come back to Kent's argument too, or plan. If we can make a bond, do a bond on some major projects that result in benefits to a lot of people, save our capital improvement fund, that we still can do other projects.
Right.
So what this is doing is taking a lot of the pressure off, but yet we're still gonna be able to do maybe 2 or 3 other projects a year.
Right.
And do them directly out of the capital improvement fund. I guess that's
Yeah, I
where I'm
think
coming from.
I'm in favor of tying 2 or 3
Right.
or 4 projects together.
Right.
Like you said, it's gonna be a,
It's gonna save you in the long run, like I said, I've been told by industry that it's about 30,000 tons to bring in a plant. Now, obviously, that can vary either way, but like I said, that's when you start bringing in a plant, then you just gotta start bringing in aggregates. So there's cost with that too, but, like I said, that's the part that kills us. And the other thing is, not only does it cost us so much money, but you have to have 3 times as many trucks. You know, if you're driving that way, you can run 20, 25 trucks pretty easy because, you know, you've got 2/3 of them at any one time in transit. Where if you're here, you can cut and you actually, I just say you get a better product because every time you stop an asphalt paving machine, you know, that's the whole point of keeping it going. You get a lot better ride and things like that, so. But I guess that's what it comes down to is what, you know, as a commission, do you want me to, I mean, say these are budget numbers, I can do a lot more investigating if, you know, if that's a possibility and figure out, if there's another option less expensive, whatever else. You know, like you said, you wanna make sure that if you're gonna, bond or borrow the money, whatever the case may be, that you wanna, you know, make sure things are covered. So,
how much are we putting in the average capital improvement per year?
A little over $1 million, I think.
Yeah, it's 1.3, 1.2.
And next year it would be 15% more. Or approximately.
Close.
If we
Well,
hold
it's
it.
based off what the 7 mil, is that what we're talking about, or is that the proposed?
There's two places that we pull money from for that capital improvement fund. One is part of that we take out of the road and bridge sales tax, and part of it comes from just that 7 mil
Okay.
that we put in general fund.
Well, I think
I'm
for-
sorry, I didn't have that
No,
in me right now, because I thought you were gonna be talking more about your actual road and bridge budget. Like the fund, the road and bridge fund, and what you wanted to pay out of there, so.
Well, I think we need to, the big thing is we need to decide, for 2022, do we wanna do a $6 million project? That's where we need to go.
That, and then touch back on what Tina just said, is how much and what type of rock are we gonna go with next year?
And one other thing, your ceiling, you know, he's got a schedule here for 2022, but we need a cost. What is that, if you're gonna do those roads, what is it gonna
Chip
cost?
seal cost, 2022 chip seal. Of course, we don't know if oil's gonna be 2022.
well, and that is a question, cause I
They're
guess,
threatening to shut down another pipeline.
yeah, well, I've heard now that oil's back to what, a 6-year high or something again, so.
It ain't enough.
Well, and, you know, but that,
I didn't say that out loud.
yeah, you know, unfortunately, when it comes to the speculators, that's what hurts us, but, I can't tell you that, I don't know how many miles that we had on there, but, it typically runs us about $15,000 a mile for chip seal.
Is that for double?
Yeah, no, for single, that's all we do is single. So,
Two of them roads is 2 of your asterisk on the front page. Indigo from Martin County, and then from the Kansas fertilizer plant, they've got X's on them for to be sealed in 2022.
Well, and again, without doing anything else, we at least try to put a chip seal on there trying to extend them, so,
Well,
yeah.
that's-
On your,
I don't want to include them in both projects.
Sure, right.
on your 2021 chip seal miles, we're gonna need to also have, I need to work with Scott, I'm gonna have to have an estimate of what miles we're actually gonna get done and the costs, so that we know what to leave in there, so.
Right now, our plan is to do all of them in 2021, but at that $50,000 mark.
Right, and this, okay, so we'd have to add up all these
Yeah.
miles. Okay,
I just made that up to put in there. I actually had that other spreadsheet that gives the miles per year in there, so it's in the 5-year plan. So, yeah, like I said, I guess that's what it's up to, is what does the commission want to proceed with, and it's kinda like you guys said, I'd like to do all of them, but, you know, we just.
Well, we've got to go through the process so that we can get out of our bonding limitation.
Well, and I mean, you know, based on the history of, you know, coming from KDOT again, I do know that they were very, very successful, and the fact is that they went to this actually the constituents and said, hey, we want better roads. Well, if you tell them and show them the roads you're gonna do and do a good job and follow that up, you know, people are a lot happy with it, and so puts the pressure back on us too, then, to make sure that.
And I know we can't bank on it, but here the president's talking about this money for infrastructure in Kansas, and I read something here, just, who wasn't handed to me at the dinner table yesterday or day before? Oh, Frank Osler, 185 million or billion, I don't know what project, whatever it is, but anyway, I don't know if we're gonna get any of that or not. What I'm getting, I know we can't bank on it,
Yeah.
but that may be coming down the road.
That money coming down the road is facing the same thing that we face right now. You've got 3 or 4 times as many people looking for that money than you can take care of. And I just this morning, the KDOT announced the IKE funding, and they should have called it the passing zone funding, because about 8 out of 10 of them were extension of passing zones.
Is
But-
50 still on it?
Yep,
Mhm.
both
Good.
of them, west of Peabody as well as the one down by Walton. They're gonna extend both of them a mile. But one of the projects was in there was a 4-lane expressway in, was it Johnson or Lyon? I think it was Johnson County. And a whole bunch of work out west. There was also the funding the interchange there at North Wichita.
Yes,
You know,
that's on.
that's a lot of money,
Yeah.
but that's, you know, unfortunately, that's what it takes to pay for those. And we,
Yeah.
to say that we don't need it any worse, we do, but so does everybody else, but, you know, but, I guess if they're talking about it, at least you have the possibility of it, but,
Right.
so.
Well, you never know till what you did is throw the Nighthawk project in, you never know till you get it in.
Yeah.
And then
Well,
we'll
and,
figure out what we
and
do.
like I said, that's the other thing, is I wanna continue to try to push as much as those that I can out there too, because that's a lot of benefit for us.
And that's where I come down on 290th. There's no way that could be turned down for a grant. Oh, I just never say no. But the likelihood of getting some grant share for 290th would be high.
I would think so, but again,
I know,
you know.
can never, I mean, I can get you 50 letters of support in
Yep.
5 days.
Yep.
And high profile people.
And the other thing we look at is that is typically only twice a year that process comes out.
So there'll be another one this fall, right?
Should be.
That we could get in
Again,
from the
should
next-
be,
yeah.
that's depending
It's
on the
always-
budget. Yeah.
Yes. And I would almost be willing to, you put a portion of that one in Kent's bond issue, but counting on some cost share.
Yeah.
I have to do something pretty soon.
Yeah, 290 is bad.
It's getting,
Yep.
When
Well, and
you
that's
do
what.
that, Dave, would you, I mean, the same thing we talked about is, what, 330th, buying the right of way or doing anything like that, or just?
290th would stay the same.
Just stay the same and redo what's there?
Yeah. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
I may be completely wrong.
Well,
you're getting into
it's a
Whole
lot
other
more.
game when you
Yeah.
start
Yeah.
going by
Yeah, I've heard the stories about that.
Yeah.
Now, Remington, that's a whole different ballgame, and the talks with Cayman, just, you know, on the surface, if something serious happens, it's not gonna be rebuilding Remington, it's gonna be building a new highway. And hopefully with state.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it's gonna have to be state run,
The other-
but it's gonna be a different road.
The other thing that you have to look at too is that getting into these cost shares and stuff like that is now you have to build it to the current design standards. So for instance, if we put this cost share into 90th, they're probably gonna come back and say, possibility say, hey, you need shoulders, you need all this other stuff too. Again, we don't know. Most of them come back to the federal jobs, like the high-risk rural roads.
Right.
That's what they say is you gotta come back. That's why we had the increased costs also at 190th and Nighthawk for that traffic problem was because you had to follow. Because I didn't really want to go in there and rebuild the whole stretch of road, but that's what the new design requirements were. If you want federal money, then this is what you do. That's a crapshoot out there too, and so I don't know, but I mean I think that I'd like to say we as a county, the commissioners and myself, I like to think we're on the right path to do this. It's just where do we start and how do we continue?
If you had a $6 million bond issue, what would be your priorities? Which ones would you knock out?
Well, obviously, I think Indigo has to jump up there simply because of the way it is now.
All in agreement, Indigo needs to
The way it is now. I really think that still like that Kansas, you know, from 56 down past ag service, because I think that's something that's gonna get worse and worse quicker. And then I guess one of the things I would look at is even in the short term would be doing something on Remington, going up and down there, because we do get a lot of traffic that's even not part of the church up and down there. That poor road has been underwater so many times there that it's a shame, you know, that's all that water's been underneath that roadway for so long. And
Which one?
Remington, with all the flooding and stuff through there, and that's not helping us.
But it almost has to be done this year.
Well, we you know, if we go out and do this ourselves, we can still get some of this stuff done this year if we don't wait more than another month or so. Contractors come in and could still get 10,000-15,000 tons or whatever it is done. You know, it may be cooler in the year, but it would still work. But you know, they're still bidding projects expecting them to be done this year. Sometimes you'll pay a premium in getting that because most people are full. But you know, and I guess that's the other thing is if you're looking at bonding or whatever else is, how long will it take for the bonding to go through to be able to do this?
Yeah, that would.
You know, so you know, if that's the case, are we looking at next year for that? So we really wouldn't talk about any projects this year.
Right.
No, it'd be all next year.
I was
because
jumping off.
Yeah.
That process is what, 90 days? How long would that process take on a charter resolution?
Well, there's a 60-day protest period, and then, right, and it has to be published. And then just the process of doing the bond issue itself would be at least probably 60 to 90 days.
Yeah. So that would be, so Indigo and Kansas, that's about 2.8. And then I guess the big elephant is.
You'd eat up the biggest chunk of $6 million on that, those two alone.
That's 2.8.
Yeah. Now, it might be interesting to figure out a life cycle cost of Kansas going with concrete compared to asphalt too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so.
Yeah.
Yep.
That would definitely be beneficial.
Yep.
The prices you have on here are these?
The
Just
prices
asphalt?
on here are based on the second sheet of what my cost per mile would be for almost always asphalt.
Okay, so these are for overlays only?
Yes, for the most part.
Not rebuilds?
Correct.
But it would be wise then to put 2/90th on there for an overlay. I mean, we've gotta keep it in decent shape.
Yeah.
That's one you're never gonna tear out.
Well, you sure wouldn't think so, you know, but, yeah, like I said,
If you're going strictly by traffic volume,
yeah, no, I guess I didn't bring up my traffic, well, I guess it's not here. 290th, it runs 345 vehicles a day, which,
oh, I'm talking about 190.
190,
Yeah,
yeah.
excuse me. I
Well,
was thinking 290th.
yeah.
But we can include 290th in there too.
It's the bigger.
What'd you say?
See, when you're on the
It's just
far,
the-
when you're on the far end, you don't hear all the little bits of conversation.
Let's just throw it all in there.
Yeah.
Well,
we can't do all of them.
yeah,
No, I know.
and that's, again, that's the issue is, you know,
Is 190 still got a base, doesn't it?
oh yeah. Fact is, 190th probably has the best base out of all of them, simply because it's the old highway. You know, that thing's probably been paved since the 50s,
So
you know.
like a 2-inch overlay would cure that?
Well, the 2-inch overlay would help out. The problem is it's not gonna fix the cross slope. We still have some patching to do. The other thing that creates a problem is the higher you go, the lower your shoulders are.
Right.
And we don't want to create a problem by having excess drop off, because now we create an inherent risk by having drop
So
offs.
can we fix it by chip sealing it or doing a double chip seal?
Again, the chip seal does nothing for structural. All it does is,
You just told me it had a great base.
well, it does, but the problem is it, when I say it has a great base, one of the things that would be good for would be some kind of a recycle. Now, the 2-inch, or what we call the hot recycle, whatever else is, doesn't work real well because it has been chip sealed so many times. That is not a very good operation for that. So what I was saying was I'd like to do a profile mill to get rid of most of that and then do an overlay to put the cross slope back in. But again, part of the other thing about doing that profile mill is you essentially take off an inch of material, so your net gain is only an inch of material on top of it.
But when you was asking about that, Kent, you know, this last few years, we've seen those patches pick up just like it's, like,
Yeah.
like your skin on your.
Peel off.
Yeah, peel off and stuff. And I think that's what the grinding does, is get rid of that.
But that, for the most part, yes. The other thing is that material is not the best stuff to recycle. They're looking for the higher quality asphalt content, and those chip seals are basically just a lightweight aggregate, you know. So, but again, the other thing is it puts crown back in your road, so that. But that by doing that, you're not going to eliminate any cracks. So theoretically, any cracks down below that are going to start showing up again within 2 years, roughly an inch per year, those cracks will come back. And the only way to do that is to do a more substantial recycle, like a 4-inch or whatever else. Again, I couldn't tell you for sure what to do there without doing some cores to determine that.
Fall off a 3 or 4 inch out there, and some of those drops out there, and you'll be in that draw.
Well, and see, honestly, you know, we have enough issues with accidents or animal crossings and stuff like that. That road out there is known more for the edge drop-offs. You know, if you look at our accident history or whatever else. But, you know, again, that's the other thing you look at. The fact is, 190th is almost impossible to upgrade unless you wanted to spend millions of dollars in buying right-of-way as well as moving utilities.
They just put in all new poles in the last, what, 2 years?
Yep,
2 years
and the only way you're going to do that is to either move the poles. It would be cheaper to build a new road, or, you know, move the whole road to the north. But it's, you know, like I said, that's what you look at, and you have, I think it's a 40-foot right-of-way through most of that area. It's very, very narrow. So, you know, ultimately that's what you're looking at, is you can't do a huge improvement on that other than keeping the existing surface.
We wouldn't want to include that in the bond issue then.
You know, like I said, it depends on how much you want to do and what you want to do to it.
We need to look at just the long-term stuff.
Yeah. But the other thing you look at is, for instance, Indigo. I haven't been over there and looked at it in a while, but I mean, even if we go over there and patch the bad stuff, even if we go in and chip seal it, does it hold it till next year for a bond issue? Or, you know, that's what I don't know. I wish I had a crystal ball and could tell you what's gonna happen.
You haven't driven it lately?
It's probably been several weeks to a month.
There's one of those hills around the 100th, 110th, up in there on the top of the hill. It's got a
Yep.
pretty good swing.
Yep.
It's just getting worse.
Yeah,
And
and huh?
It's gonna take blade patching or something to
Yes.
hold it for another year.
Yes. Well, and again, you know, what our plan is to go in and blade patch these roads and then chip seal those that we get blade patched to try to extend them. And then go back and blade patch other ones, but, you know, we have a little bit of versatility. In fact, is we could jump wherever we need to for blade patching, but
You say that, Bryce, but really, do you have any versatility? Because we lack of manpower to work.
well, right now, we're just, like I said, trying to get these roads fixed back up after the floods.
Yeah.
We want to get started hopefully next week or two with the blade patching. And basically, the blade, everything comes down to control those trucks. Whenever we blade patch or chip seal, we always use our own trucks, simply because, especially chip sealing, because we actually hook up to our spreader, we're set up and everything else. And blade patching it only takes, the problem with blade patching, it takes all the supporting equipment to go with it. The rollers, the broom, and stuff like that. But that is to say we have to do that, because we've got a lot of areas that definitely need blade patching. And, you know, I wish we were to the point where we didn't have to do that, but, you know, like I said, but as far as I'm saying, is just, say for instance, we need to do indigo compared to some of our lower volume roads. That solves the issue right there. You know, but the other thing is, say we need to do a lot of patching on road, but maybe we can eliminate some of that patching if we have higher priority somewhere else. You know, it's just a matter of moving the equipment from place to place, so. But yeah, it basically takes everybody that's not driving a truck or in one of the section men. We're gonna have to do something, let's put it that way, down there on Indigo. Whether we carry it through next year, or into next year, I mean.
Well, this is supposed to be a budget session, so we need to be talking dollars. Dollars with a name behind it.
Right. But, so what goes into the ceiling? I don't have a actual budget with me. The ceiling budget, what goes into that every year? I mean, how dollars? How many dollars do we put in there every year?
I don't know if we specifically broke it out, because I think we have that in the.
Because if we're looking at a ceiling on a 4-year revolving, based on your 15K, we're talking 700,000 a year needs to be put in there.
You have, usually that is out of your, not including the chip seal materials, we buy some of that out of road bridge sales tax, but you have, like, I can tell you what we put in there last year, and it's almost, sometimes you've paid it out of the capital improvement fund, but we have a line in the road bridge fund. And that's the blacktop projects.
Yes.
And this year, the budget is $723,182.
So it's supplied sufficiently, so we can move on to the next thing.
I think that's the line where you put 26 million, by the way.
Yes, yes. I think we cover that, because the salaries would be considered, I think we've got that into the asphalt roads. So, but, yeah, based on I think we average anywhere between 30 and 45 miles a year, depending on where we are.
So I'm just looking for where we need to fill the gaps. So if we got enough money in there for that. With a little bit of
I mean, you
fluctuation,
could
we're
put,
good.
depending on how things work out with what Scott's got in, you could put that somewhere between 750 to 950. I mean, that's the range you usually put in there. There's been a lot of years that hasn't been spent in that spot.
And last year we spent the overlay on 90th, that came out of that $500,000. The reason it's $723,000 is because it's been 500,000 in a year, and they, due to the air, they still had us making the final Tampa Road payment this year. They took that out of there and just put it in this fund. So that's why it's up to 7.2 years.
And then,
So,
back to the paved roads. We're saying a paved road only lasts 8 years, we're talking 3.25 million.
every year,
Has to be put in there.
at our current capacity for asphalt roads.
Right. So, which is clearly unattainable, so we need to seriously be talking about which one goes, go back to rock.
I would agree with you. Like I said, I can tell you those just off the top of my head, the things that, it would be my recommendation, but again.
And then what number is
You
it?
gotta also remember, it costs money to go back to rock.
35,000
Yeah.
versus 300,000.
In your blacktop fund, you also have for some materials, 950,000. So that's probably why you haven't always spent it, because that's kind of where your cash carryover has been in those lines.
Yeah.
It's because there's, basically
Yeah.
1.5, 1.6 million when you add those two numbers together.
That amount there typically covers our patching material.
So do we stay at 1.2 on a capital improvement, or do we bump that number up? Obviously, we can't get to 3.25, but what number does that need to be? I think that's what Bryce is looking for us, and then he could tell you this is what you get for that.
Now, if you also remember, if you decide to do a bond issue, you would have to pay a payment, which would probably come out of capital improvement. I mean, that's where you'd have to reserve the money to make that bond payment.
If that's a 10-year, you got a $6 million.
Really not interested in the bond issue. but-
Be a chunk of change every year.
I mean, you've built that right now to a point where you can do something with
Yeah.
it, but.
Well, you'd rather take a piece of it every year and put it on the bond payment and make sure you replenish it with
Right.
your taxes.
Right. Right, that's what you have to
You only got
consider.
this much, and pretty soon you start dropping it out there and not replenishing it, well, it's not gonna make a payment.
I got Social Security.
Really? Thanks.
That's how it's funded.
Yeah, there you go.
Just keep robbing from the pot, and there ain't nothing there.
Oh, I
So
see
when
what
I
you're
get
saying.
there, it won't be there.
I see.
I think he was offended.
No, I didn't mean for that. I meant for that government responsibility that doesn't seem to work.
Good thing we clarified that.
Yes, it
Nobody was laughing at all. I was trying to make light of the situation.
Kids, just kids.
All right, and then the other big elephant, in my opinion, is the rock issue. Do we go 50-50 on rock next year?
Of course, hard rock.
Yeah. And how much are we shorting ourselves by doing that? Trying to get ahead by not putting down
Well-
rock year after year. Because I noticed the floods kind of took away some of the rock in the good places, right? But
Again.
the rest of the road held up fantastic.
Yeah, it still comes down to the fact is that we're not gonna make any significant improvements until we start rebuilding these roads and getting the drainage fixed and whatever else. Because some of the roads that we did rebuild, the water went on top of them, yeah, they performed great. But the problem we got is that we're losing all the other roads that aren't that way because they just, I mean, they almost get to the point where they gotta be closed. But that's what you look at. The fact is that I've always said to Pat, I didn't want to use the good quality rock on roads that weren't rebuilt
Right.
because we're not getting as much out of them, so we can put a lesser grade rock or
So-
whatever else on there.
How many miles are we talking about rebuilding per year?
Well, that's,
Was
and
that-
that's
Was that 10? Was it?
typically, we'd like to get around to 15.
All right.
Now, but that depends, like I said, this year, I don't know if we're gonna get to that point because of this flooding stuff.
Dave?
Now, do we have a separate budget for rebuilding roads? Or where does that come
We have $200,000 in a, what's it called?
Commodities.
No,
It's a It's a gravel road, it's a
Yeah.
rebuild.
Gravel
line.
re- yeah.
It's within the road and bridge fund.
Okay, so there is a line for rebuilding roads.
And typically what we've done is we haven't specifically addressed anything right towards that. It's just, so we had $900,000 rock, we put it into we went up to 1.1 million in hauling rock. But that extra $200,000 still included the rock we did for the rebuilds.
Okay, well, I'm trying to circle back to Jonah's point about we need to invest, the commission needs to invest more in rock. Before we invest more in rock, we need to rebuild roads.
Yeah.
How do we invest more money in rebuilding roads? And can it be something that can be contracted? I mean, where would we plug in more money for rebuilding roads that you could get the most bang from the buck? Can you? I'm trying to get back to getting my roads rock.
Yeah, I can contract them out. The problem is that it typically, it will definitely cost you more money, and that's simply because, you know, without doing a formal design all the way through
Right,
there.
then you have to have all the specs for it.
Well, you have
Okay,
to have
well,
specs,
then-
but then the contractor says, well, if I don't know for sure what you
Right.
want,
And
then
then you're
it's
gonna
gonna
cost
cost.
$500,000 increase.
Yeah.
So how about going the other route to Ken's earlier suggestions made several times is have your men concentrate on rebuilds and then maybe do more contract rock hauling. With that, how do we help you accomplish that?
The thing is, again, that hurts me there is, in order to rebuild more roads, I now have to use my other employees
Right,
that.
you're taking them from somewhere else.
Exactly.
Right.
Rock in Bay Fall.
That's where
Basically,
take
you were
away
down,
from rock.
and I'm gonna go back to this, in my opinion, you're down to maintaining.
Yep.
Right.
You don't
And-
have time for rebuilds.
Well, and the other thing that we face is that, and you guys know this, the political pressure, hey, you need to be out blading my road once a week.
Mhm.
Whether it needs to be done or not, these guys have had this drilled into their head that they've got to make sure they take care of constituents. I'm not saying things are that bad, but, you know, that's what we face. I'd love to go out and just rebuild roads and not worry about maintaining them, but,
Well, that's the hard part, is maintaining.
yeah. And to say that we're maintaining, you know, we're maintaining by blading them and putting more rock on them year after year after year. And, you know, when you come down, if we've got those 800 miles out there again that are, how many of them are in great shape that we, probably less than 100 of them.
Okay, I'm coming back. How do we rebuild more roads?
Well, like I said, if it's coming to.
What can we do?
You know, other than, you know, like talking about contracting all the rock haul, we could do that.
We only have three trucks running, don't we?
Right, but
We have to.
But for what we're doing right now, it works out great
Yeah.
because we're spotting and.
Right.
And some of that
I'm
has to
talking
be.
about when you start rebuilding a road. or
Right,
something.
right,
You
right.
gotta have
But
the rock there.
typically-
Right, you have a mile or
Yeah,
more.
typically when we do rebuild roads, we contract out.
Okay,
that
you're
whole-
ready, so it's
Yes.
already being done.
Yes.
Okay,
And
so
that, the
that's
other thing
very
is typically because once we get it rebuilt and it's still at dirt or whatever else, we wanna get rock on as fast as we can.
Sure.
So, you know, we'll hire somebody locally and they'll throw a whole bunch of trucks at it and get it covered up.
Good.
But again, that's where that cost starts, you know, as far as the out of pocket starts adding up to us.
I guess it's coming back to, if we just add more money into the rock budget, that really doesn't solve our problem.
Other than allowing us to haul more, well, and yeah, I see what you're saying. Now, it would help us, and the fact is that if we could contract all of our rock hauling, I say all of it.
Well, it's
that-
over a mile.
Yeah, that we could now take our truck drivers and put them into supporting equipment.
Right.
So,
Right.
we do have that.
Get back to more of an 18, or, what was it, you got 12 sections now, you get back to what, 18 sections basically. But didn't it used to be more graders?
They've had upwards of 20, 30 years ago. But due to equipment and help and everything else, they've cut. But yeah, I mean, that's one thing there is we put those guys, take them out of trucks and put them in, you know, supporting equipment.
So what is our rock budget? Is that a commodities line? Again,
Well,
I
you
don't
have
know
a-
these.
You have a whole section for gravel roads,
Okay.
including personnel, a contractual line item, commodities, which is where the actual
That's where
purchase of the
the
rock
rock,
comes from.
yeah.
And then there's a line for gravel projects.
Right.
And, yeah, so that all
What
together.
number are you on? What page number are you on?
Well, I'm not on any page you have.
Well, I'm in the budget here, I'm just,
Yeah, but I'm in the,
okay.
I'm
Yeah,
on page
sure.
9B,
IB, okay, I got it. I got it
but
right
it may not be the same, because this is our actual adopted budget for this year.
It's gonna be,
That's-
okay.
And,
So,
and what hurts us is the $200,000 in
$250,000.
contract.
Well-
We can go through that fairly quickly with contract hauling. So that's
Well,
what
you would be
hurts.
That's
looking
the
at
number
the
needs to be
middle column
increased,
numbers
right?
then,
Right,
right?
yeah,
Because
that's
the
If we're
actual-
talking about a budget number, that's a budget number that.
Yeah.
The issue is we got X dollars.
Right.
So 50, that was.
How much
How do you
goes
do
here,
it?
how much goes here, how much goes here?
Well,
And unfortunately, that's why we're in the situation we are now, is because we've had all these needs for so many years with only X amount of money, and, you know, again, you look at trying to take care of 180 miles of blacktop roads and, you know, the rock roads on top of it. And you kind of feel bad because the poor old dirt roads, a lot of times, you know, they really hurt. But
I think what we all don't wanna do though is we've done the last couple of years, is put 750,000 in or 900,000 and spend 1.3 or 4 for rock.
Sure.
And I think that's something that we definitely want to get up there a little higher, get closer to
So
what.
raise that number.
Raise
what
the
you're
number,
saying.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, I can tell you again, we're looking at the same thing we did in 2019. You know, we're putting a lot more rock down there that we hadn't planned on it.
Yes.
And I'm almost positive that we're not gonna get any kind of FEMA reimbursement. Simply because this first event we had, it's been about 2 months ago, the end of May, that the Marion County had enough costs, but the state did not have enough costs to warrant a FEMA application. This one here, I think we were so localized, you know, the Gossel Peabody area, but I don't think anybody else got hit near as bad. So Marion County may have the damages, but the rest of the state won't. So like I said, I'm pretty positive that we won't be getting any reimbursement. Which, you know, I mean, it's one thing, but it's just, it's something else we still have to cover.
What is Bryce, or when are we meeting with Scott again?
Monday.
It's scheduled for Monday at
Yeah.
10 in the morning, right before our regular meeting.
And what numbers do we need to give to him?
Yeah.
26 money.
Well, I mean, he kind of wanted an idea of what roads and what projects you wanted to try to do next year,
Roads at an approximate dollar,
so.
that's what he needs to do.
I mean, I can give him some of this based on this chip seal schedule, you know, we can figure some things for that asphalt projects line.
Well, to me, Indigo's next year and Kansas, right?
Yeah.
Well, and I guess one question that I foresee is, we'll still have the asphalt budget, the capital improvement line, plus, and I don't know how the bonding, if you wanted to do that, would fit into that. But,
Well, we could bond Indigo in Kansas.
well, no, but I'm just saying is, how that fits into the budget, is that strictly its own budget, has nothing to do with any of my accounts? Or does that come out of my stuff, or
Payments, got payments.
The payment would have to come out of capital improvement.
Yeah.
just capital, okay. But that's what I was just, you know, wondering, would that affect anything else, so that knowing that if I still get the money for these other things, then, anyway.
I mean,
Frustration.
no.
Which is, well, if we can bond without going to charter resolution, up to 4 million, 3.9, whatever, we could take care of those two, couldn't we?
Let's see.
The Indigo as well as
Kansas.
Kansas. I would say it would be,
2.9, say 3 million.
I'm hoping this won't make a noise, but I want to open something here, so just be prepared just in case.
Okay, go ahead, I'm ready this time.
All right.
I'll still jump.
hopefully she opens the right thing. You know, and it's
So, you know, we need to be able to cash flow that
yes.
payment,
All 3 million.
you know, whether it's gonna be a 10-year, whatever it's gonna be.
Mhm.
You think the payment's gonna be 400, 500 a year?
I wouldn't think if you're only doing 3 million.
Say-
I think it should be quite that much.
3 million?
350,000 maybe.
Yeah, maybe somewhere between 3.25 and 3.5.
Yeah, just as well as you figure you upgrade that 2 miles from asphalt to concrete. That should fit into 3 million. Although I don't know what, since I'm an engineer and I can quote prices.
I are an engineer, right?
Yeah, I are.
I know that Scott's probably going to talk to you about this when he's here, but as far as
Scott worked out that 10 million in bonding.
you know, we would have to do a charter, obviously a charter resolution for that, to get out from under the debt limit, which you can do for road projects, but I've got another one.
I thought maybe Brad being independently wealthy like that, he'd be willing to.
Just look at.
I was just gonna write a check,
Yes.
just to make this a lot easier, but I thought I'd let you guys go through the
Gotcha,
exercise first.
gotcha. So
That's
you,
nice of you.
Yeah, it's that.
so you write blank checks or bad checks also then, right?
Pretty much.
Yes, gotcha.
Rubber check bounces at $1 as well as 10
Yep,
million.
yep.
It's pretty much the same penalty, well,
Yeah,
more
like-
jail time.
It's
Yeah.
pounds, yeah.
Sorry, I was just gonna see if I could find where Dave Arterberry responded about our actual limits.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for earlier. I'll do the rest.
Now, if I remember, it was last year, I actually talked to Dave about just stuff like that. And I think he said something about the sales tax, that if we were to instigate a 0.5% sales tax, it would give us, was it $8 million over 20 years or something like that? But, you know, that's over 20 years
That's
also.
20 years.
Yeah, which is a long time. But, because I think he said you'd be able to do that, because that would basically start the, if you want to talk jail tax, what it was back
Worked out
up.
that 10 million.
So,
Okay, so the,
Okay, so.
our debt limit, according to Dave Arterberry, is, our debt limit balance is about 4.5 for a bond, as of right now, without charter.
basically, we could bond up to that amount then.
Yeah, approximately.
Yeah.
I think we better go for it, get something going.
So this one, I don't know if you've had yet, I think Scott's gonna follow up with you when he's here, so.
So, based on that amount, plan on the Indigo as well as the Camry. Kind of what you're saying.
What I've heard so far. The cans of concrete?
Well, either way, that 1.5 miles, whatever, whether it's asphalt or concrete, whichever would be the best for life cycle costs.
Yeah.
One of the advantages I see with asphalt is you could, you could do it with both. Is build it one lane at a time, because the problem you'd have, especially with ag service, if you had to run them south all the time, where once you do the base, they essentially could drive on it, where concrete, you're gonna have to pour. I guess you can do it all the time as long as you route them around this way, but concrete's basically a one-shot approach. Once you got it paved, you're done, and you wait 7 days, whatever it is. Anyway, those are all things that can be considered, but
Or we could just do 290th lot next year.
Well, I still think we'll get cost share on it, but you could do half of
half of 2/90, I'd still get in your 4.5.
Do we have a half that's worse than the other?
Well, that's if you get
We could go,
50% cost share.
we could go every other mile.
There you go. That would make so much sense.
Well, you can always pay for Indigo out of your capital.
There we go. I like that.
I don't know what kind of cost it's gonna be, that's fine.
Well, I mean, he's got this 2.6 million on
Right.
here, so if
And
you're
we're
looking at
gonna
that,
have $5
but that's
million.
probably low.
Right, so
Yeah.
we just jumped to.
He likes to give us low.
Yeah, 3.2 million on Nighthawk. And Nighthawk's shorter.
Give it to who?
Well, that whole
Minus
project.
Hillsborough.
Yep, that whole Nighthawk project is actually, I guess what are you asking again?
Nighthawk is, okay, so it's called for 13. So it's got the same amount of mileage on your,
Yeah.
or,
Yeah, cause you actually add a mile north up to 56 that you gain on the south end of Indigo.
right. And Hillsborough's only 11.5 because you drop off the
County line.
county line. And Hillsborough, you're not going all the way to 56.
Right.
Maybe I misheard. The Kansas one, is that the one by the Hoop Building, or is that the one to add
It's
service?
by the Hoop Building to the south.
Okay, well, it says to the fertilizer plant.
Yeah, 56.
Goes down to.
South about a mile.
So you're just talking about 2 miles?
That's south to Ag Service.
Yes, two
What
and a
about-
half.
What about Kansas by the Hoop Building?
That far?
That's part of
That's
it.
part of it. From 56 south for about a mile and a half or 2 miles.
Okay, so it includes both.
Yes.
So it
I
includes the
thought that
mile,
was 2 miles.
the mile by the
Okay.
Hoop Building
Okay.
plus.
Plus, so it's both.
But
Well,
you're not
I had
talking
another
about-
commissioner tell me once that if it's benefiting business, that business needs to pay for
I've already addressed that issue and you don't wanna know what they said.
it.
Well, and see, here's the other thing
The
though.
other-
The
We have a
east-
cost share on that piece of Kansas right there, don't we? No, isn't that?
No, it's not a cost share. The east side of Kansas for the first half mile is owned by the city of Hillsborough.
Oh,
That is actually the city limits, down to half mile south.
so how does
The
that
Hoop
work?
Building's actually in the city limits.
Yes.
Right.
So we would actually have to work with the city of Hillsborough to,
Do the half mile on the west.
East.
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 we,
The city owns the west
we
side.
would do the
Yeah.
east, they would do the west, or pay for it, whatever the case may be.
Right.
But yes.
Okay.
And honestly, I have talked to the city, as like last year, they said, yeah, they would probably be interested in it. I mean, they're gonna get the benefit out of it. I did talk with the co-op and the comment was made was, we just wrote a very big check. I wouldn't wanna write any more for that, but
Would you just do a half mile on that? I mean, if you was to do it, what I'm getting at is, what's causing our ruts right now? Is it traffic from the south or traffic from the north?
yes.
Or-
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Honestly, you will notice that, cause I think when they leave Ag Service, they're basically loaded going north. So from Ag Service up that way, you'll see a lot of ruts, but then the trucks coming into the Hoop Building are creating problems just as you get off of 56.
From the building to the 50?
Yes.
Plus
I mean, that's-
that mile to the north of 56. It seems like everything's
And-
going down that hill,
Yes.
stopping.
And why that is,
Yeah.
if it's a stopping issue, I don't know, but yeah, it's running really bad.
That's it.
Because we've held the fertilizer plant on just blacktop until the Hoop Building got there. I mean, yeah, it hasn't, it didn't rut like it's doing now.
Okay.
And that's why I asked that question, because it didn't used to rut until all of a sudden the big Hoop Building got there, and then all of a sudden.
Well,
it just went
and
ahead.
again,
But we
sorry.
hauled a lot of material in.
South of the fertilizer is all blown away
Yeah,
too.
Yeah, and a lot of that has had to do with the moisture, again, especially that first mile or so south of it. Same thing with the part up on north, when that pavement starts running like that, the water sits there, gets driven down, and
All it takes is for that first little hump.
First little hump, yep.
Yep.
Once water sits,
Yep.
it's all downhill. Literally.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you know, like we talked about Indigo, it still blows my mind as to why we're having the problems we are, where we're having problems. You should never have rutting problems on top of a hill or coming down a hill. But
natural spring.
Well, that's one thing I can attribute it to, and if that's the case, man, we got
We had
that.
water running out of the tops of the hills on 330th.
Yep, and I think, you know, we still see some of those issues now with what that pavement's done, but, you know, unfortunately, man, what do you do?
That last quarter mile there, that's what we fell through with the trucks on that redo on Indigo.
Yeah.
That was a spring underneath that.
Yeah.
It was nothing but
Well,
water.
that especially from 120th south, man, that road is just crazy. So, anyway, well, I guess from me, other than that money, is I can do more investigation on Indigo to see if I can find anything. We're finally starting to get a decent point. Maybe we got our backhoe back up that we can go out there and do some investigating, or I can contact the lab guys with a core rig just to go see what we got there, just in certain places.
Would be beneficial just to hit it with a bore.
That's what I'm saying. Just,
Run a bore in there, and that way if you find something, you just pull back through with a
well,
drain towel.
that I would like to know. It's better for the pavement to go straight down just to find out what it's like around there. I understand what you're saying, that, you know, but the other problem is if you go in this way, it's very tough to bore in from the side. You have to get down the ditch.
Well, more of an angle, cross sectional.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. That's something we can look at.
Well, we could frack it too.
Yeah.
Put hydraulic pressure on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll blow that road right back up.
We can inject it. We can inject it with whatever we need to.
They raise concrete.
Yeah.
We'll have to get some of that foam.
I did that on Highway 50 between Florence and Newton. Yeah.
No, that's catastrophic.
Why did you bring this contraption?
This contraption.
Sculpture?
Sculpture.
Not a sculpture.
I brought this in just for information. This is a dowel bar basket. For those of you guys that didn't know this is what they put in concrete pavement. Every
seam.
Every 15 foot, they saw right across the top of this. You want it to break, crack at this point. So these two pieces hold the slab together. Yep. These are actually coated with like a waxy stuff, so that you don't develop a bond on them. They allow slide back and forth. This is what they call the basket. This part here, just hold it in there. KDOT at one time had what they call dowel bar inserter that automatically went down and was putting bars in there. What they found out was when the paver was actually coming behind them, it was just dragging them along. So they really had no idea where these bars. They had bars sticking up in the pavement and whatever else. So they finally come back and said, look, we're just gonna go this. These are anchored in the ground. Now, the main reason I brought it is when we're doing this recycling, some of these are left in the pavement. And they're getting almost every one of these bars back, because I haven't seen one of them. What we're seeing in this stuff that was brought in was these here, was the smaller stuff. Just, like I said, just for information for people to look at.
Tire fillers.
Yeah, and I mean, the bars going across probably aren't much bigger than a number 9 wire that you'd see on any other farm truck. Now the ones going this way, they're obviously a little bit more substantial, but anyway, just an idea of what you're seeing in that pavement for information, so. But
Is there a design length height underneath the concrete they're supposed to be, the top of those bars?
this bar right here is typically half these baskets are set. Most of the concrete's like in an 8.5 to 9 inch range, so that would be like 4.5 inches. If the pavement's thicker than that, then they would be a little higher. They're made for the job.
I got a 12 by 12 rebar running separated mesh grids.
On the center line,
Not the.
this is what you call a non-reinforced L joint.
Yeah.
The only thing that you have is every joint you have one of these, except for center line, because you have to solve center line, otherwise the pavement's too wide. And on center line, they'll put like a number 5 bar, like every 3 feet. And all that's doing is trying to hold the center line together.
But every section between center line and these, what are they putting in for a cross section?
Nothing.
Just straight concrete. Fibers?
No. Simply because of the cost. They do this because they know the concrete's going to crack, and so they put these out there so that controls the joints. Concrete is stronger than asphalt, so that between the joints, as long as you have a decent base, that pavement will withstand any problems. Now, opposite ends of the spectrum, I talked about 56 up here. Look what that's like. And when it was originally built, didn't even have dowel bars in it. We did the dowel bar retrofit in like '01. Look at Highway 50, fell apart. Exact same, design, but this had a base, this fell apart. A lot of subs, but anyway, so same thing. So, but they actually in the past had continuously reinforced pavement. They actually had machines that would pull the rebar along. They had guys stand out in the middle tying the crossbars, and they laid them down and put concrete over top of it. Extremely expensive.
Labor intensive.
Yes. But where does that cost come into as far as the life cycle costs? And basically it comes down to the fact is they said, we're better off patching or whatever else than spending the extra millions and millions of dollars.
So that's what you're gonna suggest on Kansas then? Not putting in the rebar?
Well, I'm not saying that it doesn't help. For smaller applications, whatever else, you could put in mesh in between here that would help. Any type of reinforcement you put in there. Typically when you do mainline paving, you got an automated machine that's going down the road. There's no way to put anything in front of there or whatever else. This is basically what you get. But that's something to look at, basically adding mesh. If you really wanted to, you wouldn't even have to put these in here. You could just put in mesh all the way. You still got to go back and cut it though.
Right.
But that's all stuff that can be worked out. What it comes down, the more labor you put into it, the more materials, is where it comes from. So.
Okay, gathering all the information we've talked about here is to give to Scott to start with is we're looking maybe to go out maybe for a bond up to 4 maybe. And for projects next year, we're looking at Nighthawk, or not Nighthawk. Indigo and Kansas.
So you're only talking about 2 miles on Kansas?
Well, that would just be my recommendation. If you want to go all the way down, we could, but the biggest push is going to be in that first 2 miles.
So you're looking at just around a little over 3 million is what you're talking about in the project?
Probably, yeah. Unless we add some more somewhere else. To get it up to, I think Ken said just go to 4.
Well, if we can, let's go ahead and max that bond.
Why max the bond? And that's what you need.
It's more than 2 miles down to the fertilizer, ain't it?
Yeah.
It's like 2 1/4, 2 1/2.
I mean, that might end up being a lot more money than
What we think.
I think it is. I don't know.
I thought 180th was right south of there, because 180th is closed.
Okay, you might be right, yeah. For some reason, I was thinking it was the next section, but it can't be, because that half mile
Yeah.
is.
So we go down the fertilizer, then what do we do with the rest of that blacktop?
Rock.
Honestly, I would say rock.
Well, I mean, there's not much there right now.
Again, that's one I was thinking about that is, if you look at 150th to 7 miles, Kansas south of there would be 3 miles. 56, or Kansas from 56 to 290th is 90 miles. And west of Durham is 4 miles, 13, 16, that's 23 miles we get rid of 180.
You're not gonna get rid of that west of Durham. I'm just telling you got it, leave me out of this, but there's a school on that road.
Yeah.
And someone will be dead very quickly if we do.
I'm just,
Well, it's not like it's falling apart at this point.
yes it is.
Oh, it is?
Brad can probably vouch for
Yeah.
that. Every day at 3:30, and it's well over the speed limit.
Yeah,
Many.
yeah.
There's 60-some kids in that school.
Well, and actually, that's why I brought up that issue. That's a bridge to consider, is that bridge there, because it's
Oh, yeah.
kind of high profile. We got, they say have the dairy there too, don't they?
Yes, and cheese manufacturing.
And yeah, so, but anyway, I just, like I said, I just propose stuff to you guys. You're the ones that can.
So Kent basically said after the school, you can turn it back to.
Gotcha.
You're a big proponent, that's for sure.
What are friends for, Kent?
Yes.
Come on up for breakfast tomorrow morning.
You're gonna walk into a hornet's nest is what's gonna happen, I think is what he's saying, so.
This is the man who suggested this.
Yeah. No.
Here's his home phone number, cell phone number.
Oh.
Yeah.
Don't give it home.
Don't blame me, call this guy.
Well, and again, that's what we talked about is that, just trying to reduce those costs. Is
I think
those
you used numbers,
roads,
'cause
they just cost.
we did get a lot of
traffic
issues.
comes from the
We
west.
still had to pay for it
That's
next
where
year.
they all live.
Yes.
Generally not.
Not the same year.
Well, it depends. If it's like a biannual payment, then you might have one
Okay.
part of the payment next year. A lot of times they're just annual.
There's other polls too.
So there actually were some numbers given, you have some information to work with?
He says hopefully.
That this group finally came to a consensus?
The only thing I know is that you're looking at maybe doing a bond.
Okay.
And
She has that,
That's all- that's
see
all.
that cryptic smile too.
possibly 2 projects.
In addition to or as part of?
Well, I guess we'll have to figure out which one, where they go.
Okay.
Whether we pay the Nighthawk or, Indigo off with some of our money, or whether we bond it out to make a max bond, or just what we do with that. If one way or the other, you're gonna put it in one or the other. And,
You didn't give me enough numbers to come up with a bond and projects, so.
We're shy of about 5 million.
Yeah, we'd have to go to charter resolution.
I thought
That's what
I thought we were short about.
No, we're shy
24.
about 5 million projects for her to justify a bond, so I'm saying.
Right, because what you've given me so far is like just over $3 million, like 3.2.
We've got that in the capital
something.
improvement, so I'm gonna go for a bond. Unless we needed the extra.
But it doesn't really matter, because you have, you do need to develop the plan of which roads it's
Right.
gonna be, but, we always budget to spend everything out of capital improvement, whether we do or not.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, I think we need to budget for a bond issue also.
so what I can do is just say we're looking at maybe trying to do a bond up to our debt limit for roads.
I like that.
And then figure out what the payment would be so that
Yes.
we can make sure that we reserve that money in the capital improvement fund. And then from there, I guess the only other thing would be determine if you want to try to add any extra money to the capital improvement fund, or if you want to just for the 1 year, let it be the same number of mills that we're doing now.
and to build that bond, we can have roads with overlay, blacktop overlay, and we can also have them with a cement mixture. Can we build both of them on the same bond?
Yeah, you could
You can do whatever you want to.
Yeah, you could do whatever, I think.
No matter, just a project.
Yeah, you just have to
Yeah.
develop the projects and know what they are, and then, yeah, you should be able to do a combination. So really, I think there's still planning that needs to be done, but it doesn't all have to be done before Monday.
I think that would be a good number for us to look at, a potential bond, see how it fits into the budget.
Okay. So I can, I probably will go ahead and email David Arterberry, because he'd be the one to probably figure our payment, a general idea, and he'd probably ought to get that for us before Monday,
Yeah.
if he's in the office.
Yeah.
And then Scott could get that information, I'll copy him on it.
And looking at my agenda, but that's the last thing we have to accomplish, is budget work session.
I am gonna bring it, we're finished on budget numbers and what we're looking at for next year. No?
Yep.
I mean, for today.
Yep.
And I'm gonna go back to one point that Bryce did bring up, and that being Remington from 56, to Pilsen. With the Capen event coming up late September, there's gonna be a lot of high-profile traffic on that road for that event. I don't know that it doesn't necessarily need to be rebuilt, but something aesthetic to at least be a little more appropriate for the event.
Have they ever said what they expect in numbers?
I don't know if anybody knows, but I just know in dignitaries, they basically have confirmation from many international people already.
How about Trump?
Don't know about Trump, but what was this? Was
He's
it,
one brought him back.
was it Czechoslovakia?
Yes, someone from
Is
Czechoslovakia.
sending someone,
Korean ambassador.
Korean ambassador is coming.
All of the high-profile Catholic
Yep.
bishops.
Would they say 7 out of the 9 bishops or something like that?
Yeah.
That
They all have ties to Cape.
That basically have said that that's the reason why they went into the ministry.
Yep.
And that's, well, and their South Korean ambassador
Yes.
may be here, and we heard that they may be presenting a special award also. That does not include any kind of regional or national politicians. Obviously, military and whatever else. They have confirmed that, was it the Legion Riders or the DFW?
Right.
Was going to be in motorcycles. The Patriot Guard is supposedly going to be there also. And that's just the people they know. Does not include any of the locals or other people from Wichita or whatever else. So, I mean, I really think you could expect, what's the church hold, 600 or 800 or something like that?
Right. It's gonna be more of a short event.
Yes.
That day, but there's gonna be a lot of important people traveling that road. And this, we're just talking about the event in September.
Yeah.
Just perspective, I mean,
Yes.
we're talking bigger and more than this, but the Arts and Crafts Fair in Hillsborough, it's 50,000 people.
Mm.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
And I'm walking the streets, I don't deny it. So,
For this event, if you've been down that road, it really doesn't make a very good impression. And I guess if there would be a way of Bryce being able to do some quick blade patch and a chip seal and paint lines on it without, I know it's lipstick on a pig, but.
it's just gotta hold for a few weeks.
Yes.
Well,
I mean, it'd still be it'd give a couple
It'd
years.
still be an improvement to the road.
It'd be
Yeah.
an improvement to the road,
Well-
but it's a very, very important event.
Yeah.
And I don't know even if the timeline is if it's even possible
We
to shift
had
around.
actually, we had talked about going elsewhere, but I said, a lot of our equipment and our coal mix is right there. at
It
the
already
site
is
now.
in Belson.
We were just gonna finish going south.
Okay.
So we would get that done right away.
Okay.
Because we'd actually finished there last year right for distributor shop there.
Right.
So.
That'd be nice.
Now, we have turned that up because it was left over, and we have somebody watching us that's
Oh,
very,
yeah.
Yeah.
very
Yeah,
happy.
It will be just fine.
So make sure that it's got some oil in it, and make sure that it sticks, or we will get criticized very highly.
What would it cost to do a single chip seal and do the lines and some quick blade patch?
Well, like I said,
I mean, it's.
typically we just, we use that budget on $15,000 a mile
Right.
for chip seal.
Okay.
The striping, the biggest problem we would have with striping is getting, the contractor we typically use here, to get that stuff covered.
Yeah.
But I think I could call in some contractors I know of that would probably help us out in the short term,
Under the
Yep.
circumstances. I mean, it is a high profile.
Yeah.
But
But yeah, that, I said and we need to do something with it anyway, because it's got some
Right.
bad spots.
I guess what I'm asking with the rest of the commission can we give him some direction to shift some assets around to be able to make that happen?
I think it's necessary. I mean, you're gonna have your best potential to have somebody recognize your area and say, hey, maybe this ain't too bad to move here.
Yes.
By
Have a
the
road
route.
you can,
Yeah.
Well,
to stay in one lane.
honestly, and I've got a different perspective than some of you, because I come from a lot of different areas. But I know from going to someplace that isn't very big, like Hayes, right? From someplace that's really relatively small, like Western Kansas. And I thought I was in a big city just because of the size of the road that led to the hospital. I wasn't driving down some narrow path with trees hanging over and thinking I was in some.
A tree.
Is there a tree out there?
No.
Wow.
It's what I'm saying is it's
Was
a
that
whole
payback for that?
different perspective, kinda like,
I don't know, we don't need any tree trimming on that road, do we?
We could use some.
yeah.
We do.
There's around the 230th to 250th, we have a lot of scrub brush and stuff like that that's out there that we could hit, but.
It really does change perspective. I'm not
Yeah.
just gonna,
Yes.
I'll leave it alone after this, but it does change perspective when you got a wide road, it's nice,
Yeah.
and you don't feel confined.
Well, the other thing we were looking at is we've actually got started on it to try to get ahead of it is to make sure the guardrails stay trimmed and things like that, because that's, you know, when you can't see the guardrails, but, you know, it's like, I wanna put forth our best foot forward, saying it looks good, so.
I guess you've got direction.
Yeah, we were gonna plan on at least doing the blade patching, and
I think it's probably pretty important to get that done.
it's like you said, it's dollar wise, it's not a huge
But the
amount.
striping would be,
The chip sealing and the
the
striping
striping
are
would
really,
be really important.
Yep.
if we
make the
did.
perspective of
Yep.
presentation.
Yep, yep.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. So we can put an overlay on it too, but, you know, anyway.
Look, it'd be
We'd be
better
pushing
if
it
they
now,
like-
you
They like
wouldn't
it so
get
much, they
anybody to
come
do it
back and
now.
visit some other places and spend all their money and then go back home.
Yeah.
Well, there are people that will be making a lot of decisions about that coming that day.
Yeah.
About future investment into
Yeah.
this. So if they see that road, there's no way.
Yeah,
that
they're gonna
it's
say,
anything's
if there's gonna be
invested.
some kind of a building or museum or
Right.
something, you gotta have a good road to get
Yeah.
there.
Well, and the biggest thing that we're facing obviously is we've still talked about if this happens.
Yeah.
Most people are not saying if anymore, but when. Well, we've been hearing that once this thing happens, that it could be as little as 2 years till they canonize him. If that's the case, we're still going, you know.
Years isn't enough time.
Yeah, so, but anyway.
Mark,
I'll shut up.
Any more questions, Commissioner Mueller?
I'll be quiet.
Good question.
Yeah, it's a good
Burn
thought.
Feel like you got whipped puppy, but.
Well, it just happens that after I picked my papers up here, dropped out, oh, Ramona Road issues, all this and that. Take care of those people.
Mueller.
Yeah.
I, just out of curiosity, you guys voted to do that. What, do you want it done right away? Do you want to wait for the railroad to get back?
No, we talked about it being a reimbursement, we just need to handle it.
Okay.
And I mean, we talked about crushed concrete or whatever.
Yep.
It was.
That was my thought.
Okay.
But I was just curious, I didn't know if you want to wait for the reimbursement and.
No.
The right pile of crushed
Yes.
concrete, we don't want to re-pick it up.
Okay.
Okay.
Re-pick it up.
Yeah, you know, once we lay it down, we pick it up again just to see.
Okay.
We don't want to do that.
You make a base and you put it
Yep.
on top of it, more or less.
Yep. Okay. Well, and of course, just happens to pick the road, it has 2 high pressure gas lines as well as a fiber optic line running down the side of it, but hey,
Yeah.
you know.
TCT still in town in Hillsborough, so have them on the ready.
My plan is to not bother either one of them.
Well, yeah.
Just,
Yeah.
yeah.
But a well-laid plan usually comes with the risk
With
analysis ready to go.
With that being said, is there anything else that needs to be accomplished? Tina, you got anything else?
No.
No.
I made a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn, do I hear a second? Second by John, all those in favor say aye. 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 4-0.
But it was fun, wasn't it? It was real, it was fun, but it wasn't real fun.
This show and tell thing you do, Bryce, really livened it up.